So we begin today's little tour of Oakleigh Park at the council marker for it. Some interesting things happened here that we'll get into as we go on. Let's get on to it. The park is tucked away in South Burnie. You can see the main highway up there, and in the background there you can just see the edge of the wood chip pile for export. Looks to be a variation on the Tasmanian waratah tree. Very attractive little beasties. Some idea of scale with my hand in there. Back of the park, along that roadway there, is the Port of Burnie. Put a link to that video in the end of the show. Ahead we can see there's a little fountain, but we'll come back to that at the end and discuss what that's all about. Nice, well maintained little area. Somewhat appropriate given what it commemorates, that there's a huge, well, sizable rose garden. And considering the rain we've had, they're in pretty good nick. Very pretty. To the rear of the garden is a couple of picnic tables tucked into a cutout on the slope up to the highway. There's a sundial, no use today. No use a lot of the time in Burnie, but one's there anyway. And as you will realise from just about every video, there's a very strong connection to ex-servicemen. This was built by the Australian Legion of Ex-Servicemen and Women, the Burnie sub-branch for all who served, and was opened during the bicentennial year of 1988. And they added a plaque commemorating the 50 years of the local sub-branch. Of course, faces north, and you can see the angle there relates to the fact that we're at 41 degrees south. This way continues on and out of the park. We won't be going out, but we'll go and have a look as we come underneath an ancient oak. Ancient by these parts anyway. Very calming tree, the oak. And off to the left there's the train line that comes into the port from Devonport and places beyond, and this pathway gets you round to a set of steps or a walkway to get up and over the highway, over the train lines rather, and onto the other side of the port into the main town of Burnie. As we come back in under the oak, and it's quite widely spreading branches. A selfie here to show you the width of the trunk. It's a fair size. And going up from where I'm standing. Very comforting trees, oaks. Not sure what this building is here. It does go through into the train lines. There's the fence meets it halfway. A little bit of attempted mural there, and I imagine this is to do with the council. And we have another native, looking a bit scraggly, probably not the best place for it. And suffering a little bit of dieback too by the look of it. Lots of little birds taking off as we approach. There's a plover over in the background. It's the big one under the tree. Of native plantings looks to be doing much better. And we have a pretty impressive version of the bottle brush. Very tactile. And this variety would have flowered a lot earlier, obviously. This is what those golden cobs end up doing. It's the seed heads and the flowers of the bottle brush. I think is some sort of tea tree. Just have a sniff of the leaves. Maybe, maybe not, but you can see they're very small flowers. And there's a lot of them. Quite an interesting mass display. And of course, the ubiquitous blackberry. You just can't get rid of the stuff. Not sure if we're picking that up in the sound, but there's a little bird in there. Must have a nest or something. To where we've come from, you can see that there's quite a number of European type trees planted across the park. And some playground equipment. And what looks to be another oak. And what looks to be a blackwood up there, which is a native in fine form. Lots of them at home. This little bit of native planting seems to be reasonably well established. I don't know what was going on with the other one we first passed. Another younger oak. Got some years of growth left in it. They're very distinctive oak leaves. And for some reason, this stone, I can find no information on it. If you know what it's there for, please drop a comment in the space below. It's more of an industrial area. There's a little bit of health services here as well, and ag supplies. It's nice little parks tucked away, and if you filter out the traffic noise, which the mine tends to do, this can be quite a relaxing place. There's plenty of bird song. Another shot there of that first oak tree that I stood in front of. It'll give you some idea of its scale. It's a big tree. And we have, of course, the picnic set. No park is complete without this. With the ubiquitous barbecue, which hasn't been cleaned yet today. And then it is fairly early. It's just after 9 o'clock. Seems a bit odd that it hasn't been done. There's a fairly snazzy public toilet. There you've got to go under these old pine trees or conifers of some sort. Quite an eerie feeling underneath them. The boundary of the park there is marked by yet another oak. All the pine nuts there. I don't know what they'd be called. Some sort of seed heads anyway. Quite a high-tech public toilet. Red light flashing, someone's in there, so we'll move on. Move in under the conifers, just behind those public toilets. You can see what I mean by quite ethereal, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there were leprechauns and fairies under here. Interesting look to the texture and feel of these branches, trunks and branches. It's quite pleasant to just sit under, or stand under. Accumulation of fallen branches and whatnot. It does feel like something out of Lord of the Rings. And these are reasonably high trees as well. Just enough light coming through to have you questioning your mind. There of all the fallen branches and whatnot that have accumulated into the middle of the tree. A bizarre thing. As we come out of the little grove of conifers, there's another fairly sizable one there. Quite impressive trees. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of scale with the human in front of it. And another which looks like it might actually be a native, which has been left to grow for quite some time. Very attractive. And now on the southeastern flank of the waterfall is another rose garden. These are much bigger roses than the others we saw earlier. A slightly different yellowy one variety starting to spring out, about ready to burst bud. Okay, back past another oak tree, or is it? It might be a plane tree, I'm not sure. As you can see, it's a much wider trunk. Now then, back to the reason the park's here. This is our little commemorative fountain. The water actually does cover a bit of the traffic noise up this close, which is nice. And to the immediate south of the fountain is a column, an obelisk. Which is always one of my favourites. As you can see, it goes way up, not quite as tall as the trees, and there's a glass sort of pyramid thing on top. I'm hoping you can pick up against the background of the tree. In 1825, the Van Diemen's Land Company was granted 300,000 acres. They were after 500,000. Felt a bit hard done by here in the northwest of Tassie, which at the time had not been settled by white folk. The Van Diemen's Land Company, I am working on a separate video of the Van Diemen's Land Company. It's an interesting history, quite unpleasant in places. But anyway, they had a surveyor by the name of Henry Hellier, an architect by training, but also chief surveyor for the Van Diemen's Land Company, who camped here on May the 8th, 1827. 6 months later, on October the 9th, 1827, the company set up the Emu Bay settlement, which went on to become Burnie. Now this plaque was unveiled on the 8th of October 77 in the sesquicentenary year of young Henry Hellier's surveying of the northwest. Did a lot of surveying work here and further west at Circular Head, Smithton, Stanley, those sorts of places, and in the hinterland of Burnie as well, where sheep were brought in and basically died. So it became more cattle country. There's sheep now, but those early ones didn't survive. Now Henry, I can't exactly recall the dates at the moment, I'll put them along the bottom, was promoted to being the chief surveyor for the colony of Van Diemen's Land. And the night before he was due to leave the company, the land company, and move down to Hobart, he took his own life with a pistol. But Hellier is everywhere here around Burnie, not just this park. There's Hellier College, there's Hellier's Distillery. He's just ubiquitous. There's even a town out towards Stanley called Hellier. And in recognition of his work, 150 years later, this pink granite obelisk was erected. So why this is called Oakleigh Park, I'm not sure. There's an Oakleigh house further into Burnie, which is an historic house. I'm yet to find the reason why this is called Oakleigh Park. If you know, drop a comment below. If I find out before this is published, I'll put a link in the description. There you have it, Oakleigh Park.